Hello and welcome to the Energy Talk podcast. My name is Mojola Ola, and thank you for joining us for another episode. On this podcast, we tell stories about sub-Saharan Africa's energy transition, focusing first on the financiers, policymakers, and operators that are driving us towards the goal of universal electrification. Over the last few episodes, we focused a lot on financiers, covering major projects and investments. But on this episode, we're speaking with an entrepreneur, somebody who is currently building a product that is set to impact significantly the Nigerian energy market. His name is Mojola, and he is a seasoned veteran of the energy sector and also holds an MBA from MIT. We're going to be speaking to him about team building, designing products, and what it's like operating in the Nigerian space right now. As always, we're going to start off the episode with Mojola telling us about how he first got into energy and then go into what he is building with his incredible team in Nigeria. Mojola, welcome to the Energy Talk podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you for bearing with me while I did the technical setup.
Thank you very much for having me, Olu. It's a pleasure to be here, to be on Energy Talk.
Okay, so you said you've done a radio show before. This shouldn't be so different.
I'm still a learner.
I am not worried. So why don't we just start off with a bit of an introduction before we get into what you're doing right now. What was your background introduction into the energy sector?
My introduction into the energy sector was the fact that I was born in Nigeria. For almost every Nigerian kid, sadly, we all grow up understanding that there is power infrastructure and that it's got a deficiency. Many of us grew up saying up NEPA. And it seems so common, yeah? Maybe there's less of up NEPA around town now. But if you go to other climes, you start realizing that maybe what is normal or term normal here is abnormal in many other places. So this was my first baptism, and I think every Nigerian grew up with that consciousness. Beyond that Nigerian consciousness of the fact that there's a power problem, power gap, power infrastructure, and it's almost been mentally normalized to us somehow, I stumbled into engineering, for my first degree. And I say stumbled because I just love maths. I just love numbers. I could do loads of calculations in my head. I just thought, okay, where is the most natural place to go to? And I ended up with electrical engineering. And that sort of just, like they say, created the background for delving into this power space, first from an EPC side, doing a lot of power networks for an oil and gas construction company, and, move from there to global power OEMs, where there was exposure to a humongous amount of projects within the country, within the region. When I say region, I mean West Africa. And then by default, I ended up being here with GridCrux.
Yes. So let's get into GridCrux a bit. What was the last role you held before joining? And what was that transition point that you said that, okay, I'm going to go out and start my own thing?
So before joining, I was with Schneider Electric. Amazing company, by the way. I would say Schneider created a very solid platform for a lot of the work that we're doing today at GridCrux. I left Schneider as the director for marketing, business development, and access to energy for Anglophone West Africa. Before that, I had functioned in several roles that gave exposure to a great part of the network that I'll probably say that we serve today, we partner with. So massive network of partners, guys who can assemble switchgears locally, guys who can install, consultants, a massive network. The drive was just adding value and impacting. And I say to a lot of career people, not everyone necessarily needs to be a standout, come to do my own thing, whether it's with yourself or investors that have called you out to start something together. Like in my case, there's a lot of entrepreneurship that can happen. And that was the way I saw myself for every organization that I worked with before coming out to do GridCrux. And I believe so much in this African opportunity and the fact that there's so much unlocked potential in Africa. And even if it's just to design a small system or specify what the size of a transformer for a building should be, my drive was always the fact, or has always been the fact, that it may be just one building in town, in Lagos, in Abuja, wherever it is, but in my own way, shaping up that whole power experience for people. So part of the things that give me joy till today is driving past the project that I've worked on maybe it's 8 years ago, maybe it's 10 years ago, and saying to my kids and say, oh, daddy was on that project, we did all the switchgear, all that stuff. And I did to a point at Schneider, and I just felt, I think I can do more. I felt like, as much as it's a great place to work, there was also a path that I wanted to explore to increase the impact and add more value that I felt like I wasn't able to get within that system. But now that we're out, we do a humongous amount of collaboration with OEMs like Schneider, but the drive really was the desire to make more impact and to solve some, I say, challenges, some problems that I felt maybe that was not part of the services or solutions that were being offered where I was. And I also felt like there was enough of raw material in terms of network, skill, competence to really be able to do it. I just thought, let's go and try.
Yeah, and did your MBA, I think you and your co-founder got your MBA at MIT, so was that where you bit like the entrepreneurship bug, or was that like you always knew you were going to branch out even before you started your program?
I didn't always know. One thing I always knew is that I wanted to make humongous impact. Yeah. And I actually still don't feel like we have really started, because where we want to go to is very far. But for sure, MIT catalyzed that whole ideology. Yeah. Like, you get so pumped and so soaked into this Kool-Aid of entrepreneurship and you can do it, you can build the right structures, the right systems. Like, when you get pumped to that for like almost 2 years, like you almost start to question yourself, what more do I really need? When you're working at something, whether it's yours, whether it's you're building something, once you get in, it's like you're driving a car and you just keep moving. What that MBA did was it provided that opportunity to really be able to pull back and start to ask myself some very honest questions as to, how do I really want to play in this space in another 5 years, 10 years? Where do I see this space playing? How do I see my current trajectory tying into what I'm doing at the moment? Is this what I want to do for another 20 years? If I was to exit this earth today, would I be totally happy with how I've handled things? And I think that conscious thinking was able to come, quite frankly, thanks to a lot of the very, very honest conversations that, we had at MIT, in some of those classrooms, some of those coffee breaks. And shout out to a lot of some of my cohort members who I shared concepts with, and they sort of gave that, again, inspiration to say, look, you have 1, 2, 3. I mean, you don't need to have it all figured out, but at least you have most of it figured out. You can do it.
Yeah, I think that's the first time I've ever heard it described like that, the Kool-Aid of entrepreneurship. But that brings us very well into GridCrux. So this started, I think, just under 2 years ago now. Is that correct? Yeah. So tell us a bit more about the company, the people you're working with, and what exactly it is that the company aims to achieve by being functional.
First thing we want to do is to add value. Yeah. And I don't say that lightly. That's the number one goal for GridCrux. We want to add value to the ecosystem where we operate, want to add value to everything that we do. That's the number one driver. And sometimes when we have meetings with existing clients or potential clients, I say to them, look, making cash or making money makes a project or an entity sustainable, but it can't be the number one driver. If I can't add value to you on this project, I don't want to be here. And we've had several, not one, not two instances where we actually say to clients, you don't need our services. What you actually need is X, Y, Z. Yeah. Because making money is not the goal. When you add value, that cash is just a byproduct of adding that value. So I don't say it lightly when I say in the ecosystem where we operate, our number one goal is to add value. And if I'm to summarize what GridCrux is, or what we're doing is, it's probably apt to summarize in the vision that we have, which is to build solutions that provide customers with the easiest and most efficient way to access and manage energy. That ease, that efficiency, the access to the energy and the management of the energy. And that's why sometimes some people say, oh, energy access company, energy management company. I'm like, no, that's not what we are. I'll probably say we're a power solutions company that does things around energy access, energy management. In this market where we are, in Nigeria in particular, it's hard to really be able to say, this is the way that I want to solve this problem. And we get so much of that because people see as, oh, alternative energy company, renewable energy company. And sometimes because of the quality of grid, for instance, that we have, sometimes you just need to improve your customers' power quality. Yeah. And when I say improve your customers' power quality, if you come to pricing in Nigeria today, the cheapest source of power is the grid. Yeah, there's no dispute in that. The immediate cheapest source. And I think that's because, well, it's arguable, but it's grossly subsidized in my own opinion. So,
not just your opinion.
Yes. It's grossly subsidized. And I say to folks, look, if you have the grid, use it. Yeah, it probably is not going to be this way forever. It may be 2 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 8 years, 10 years, whatever. But I believe that there will be more cost reflectiveness in the pricing of the grid, which will also accelerate this whole energy transition that we're pushing. Sometimes you have customers who have great supply, but they're not able to use it just because the power quality is bad. And just introducing something as little as the voltage regulation equipment can solve that problem, which is why I say to folks, you can't have the mindset that, oh, I'm a renewable energy company, alternative energy company, I play in this space. You go somewhere, you dump solar panels, dump storage, dump. You have to be solution oriented. Yeah. And you can't have a solution to a problem even before you find out what the problem is. Yeah. And as basic as that sounds, that's one of the things that drives us at GridCrux to really be able to go somewhere, do a holistic assessment of the situation and be able to say to the customer, actually, you don't need this, or actually, you felt like you needed a 1 megawatt solar system. We've looked at this thing, and quite frankly, what you need is probably about 50% of that. And I said, when the value exchange between both parties is not balanced, that relationship will be short-lived.
Yeah.
But where the value you give is almost proportionate to the value that you receive, then that relationship becomes sustainable. And we're looking to make sustainable impact at GridCrux. So at GridCrux, this is what shapes our approach. This is how we approach problems. And we focus mostly on customers in the commercial and industrial space, and also private utility customers.
Okay. What kind of projects have you said have been your marquee project so far? And then we'll talk about the new business segments that you're looking to enter into. So I'm just curious from you, what would you say is like you said, the project during the past, you drive by, you show your kids. So what has been the project so far that you're most proud of with GridCrux?
So I think the way I would answer that question is our proudest moments are still ahead of us. And that's not a philosophical answer. I mean it, because we have some projects that we are executing at the moment. Right now, there are, I would say, 2 projects, yeah, and both are ongoing. First one is an off-grid market somewhere up north, focused on agriculture. The market has been existing for donkey years and they have no power. And what gives me the thrill about this particular project is like a plethora of solutions. It's stretched us to dig deep dive into the engineering expertise that I will say we claim to have, that has been very greatly challenged on the project, to provide what I would say is a sustainable solution for this group of people. The project is in the megawatts, and we've had to do multiple solutions. When we're probably about to launch, I'll probably say sometime in Q1 next year, I'm sure we'll reach out to you so that you're aware of that. And why that project excites me from an impact angle is how much we've been able to apply ourselves, but more importantly, the impact that providing access to energy in that community is going to have. It's a phenomenal impact already. Yeah. For some of them, we've been able to put together very quick solutions, and we've had so many people continually reach out to us while this execution is in progress to say, hey, is power going to get to our side of the market? Is power going to get to our side of the layout? And suddenly, even the amount of megawatt that we were envisaging will be sufficient is beginning to look like it's insufficient. And it's speaking particularly to how much economic potential that access to energy could really help to unlock. Yeah. A lot of factories or processing facilities that have been shut down for time, particularly because of how steep the prices of diesel have become. There's suddenly the opportunity that and the possibility that these processing facilities are going to be open again. A lot of the guys who probably have not been as engaged as they should be and are not earning as much as they should will become re-engaged again or maximized and also be able to earn more. So in my own view, the fact that there is this, will I call it, correlation between the amount of access to energy that a place or a nation or a people have and the prosperity that they experience is coming to play. And just looking at those guys dealing with the community, looking at how much prosperity can be brought there. It's one thing to go to a community and say, take 10,000 naira because you've not eaten, take 2,000 naira. It's another thing to actually be part of a process that you can clearly see is pulling people out permanently from this disenfranchised economic state that they are in. And that's one thing that gives me the thrills about that particular project. Second project is a project at GridCrux called Project Catalyze. And it's a project that we came up with to power orphanage homes across Nigeria. We identified about 200 and I think 62, 63 orphanage homes. So far, we've only deployed 3, and we have probably about 260 more to go. But going to those orphanage homes, so far it's been fully funded by GridCrux. Going to those orphanage homes and seeing the impact that deploying those solutions have on the kids, have on the guys that run those places, for me, it's the fulfillment is high. How thankful the guys are, saying stuff like, oh, the kids sleep much better at night. We were doing it with the mindset that will help them reduce maybe fuel consumption or just make their lives better. But the amount of thankfulness that the guys have when you go maybe to put them through how to use it or stuff and how grateful they are is everything for me. Yeah. So it's probably not the biggest project we've done, but I'm big on adding value, yeah? And I just believe that if every one of us can have this value-adding mindset in everything that we do, we'll ultimately build, a better community, better state, better country, better people, better living experience, for everyone that is in this country called Nigeria.
Yeah. That's very well said. And it seems that GridCrux expands very wide in your business operations. But as I said yesterday, very small company. So how has it been like managing all those business segments right now while you're still at a very small scale?
It's crazy. I think that's I think that's the easiest way to describe it. It's been a roller coaster ride, yeah. And I think maybe this is, I don't know if I can give a shout out to all the amazing GridCrux humans, amazing guys. They've made it possible so far. I personally grossly underestimated the importance of the right talent. That's been a baptism of fire. Yeah, like that ability to be able to find the right people that understand the vision, can digest that vision and can run with it. It's been a roller coaster ride, and it's only been possible because of the team that we have. From a segment angle and from a product angle, a lot of the stuff that we do is interconnected, and we're trying to zone in more and more on the products that we offer, the solutions that we offer, and try to narrow down as to how exactly we want to continue to operate in this space and how we want to sustain this impact. But to answer this question, it's been 100% the GridCrux people.
Yeah. And speaking of the people, I understand that you are launching a new product soon. that is focused more on the residential side. And I had a conversation with some members of your team, and it was one of the things I was like, oh wow, I wish it was available so I could start using it right now. I think most listeners of the podcast, from wherever you're from, apart from just your regular electricity bill that I pay every month, I also have the cost for my inverter plus the maintenance every quarter, because it's a wet cell battery, so it needs to be the distilled water is replaced every 3 months. And then the apartment I live in, I have to pay a service charge that includes diesel, and diesel is so expensive, so we have generator hours. My electricity cost, I rather not think about it on a monthly basis because it is quite high. So I'd like to understand more about this product that your company is working on and what pain points it looks to address, and how we can aim to see it playing into the everyday lives of Nigerians, and if you plan to take it further outside of the country.
First things first, www.gcwatt.com, watt with 2 T's.
Yeah.
Because I would try to summarize what we're trying to do. And starting from this, I said the vision is to build solutions that make it easy and that give efficiency when it comes to accessing and managing energy. And in a lot of project deployments that we've had, we've smelt that there is a gap. Yeah, we typically tend to do B2B deployments, but at the end of the day, in a lot of scenarios or situations, there's always a consumer at the end who is impacting how much energy is used, how much energy is required. And many of us, myself inclusive, have placed humongous focus on the energy access, but we don't really place that much focus on how we manage the use of the energy. And I say to people that taking this approach is like someone who is trying to build wealth. Yeah, you want to become a billionaire, whatever, and you're focused on how much you earn, but there is no regard or no visibility on how much you spend. And what we want to do at GridCrux using GC Watt is to help people have visibility on how much they spend. There are a couple of solutions that have probably been out there. From our research and engagement, we've also seen that not that many people, especially residentials and even small businesses, use any of these solutions. One of the major reasons being price. So we want to add impact, as is in line with our ethos, and give visibility and democratize energy management to ensure that as many people as desire to have this visibility on their energy consumption can have it at a very affordable price. And because of where we're at right now, for all customers that we're onboarding on the platform that we intend to launch, first couple of months are still going to be free when it comes to subscription. Don't ask me for how long.
I was literally about
don't ask me for how long. But really, like I said, the goal is allowing us to do more with less. We believe that once people have visibility, it's not always about going to deploy solar panels to reduce your energy consumption. Some lights are on where they should be off, but most people that we have spoken to and we continue to engage, I don't know if I asked you, if I say how many kilowatt hours did you consume last week, likelihood is you're not sure. If I say how much in Naira and Kobo did you spend today, or have you spent today so far, probably you're not sure. And the first step to really being able to plug that energy management gap is to having the insights. So we're putting the control to your energy in your palms with GC Watt. We want people to have access to that information, people to be able to lean back at the end of the month and say, hey, I spent 48,000 Naira. How exactly did I spend it? On what days did I have the highest consumption? On what time of the day do I have the highest consumption? How do I compare with other people who live in my area? Is there somebody else in a 3-bed flat in my vicinity that's spending half of what I'm spending? Okay, I want to set a target to reduce my consumption by half. All of this and so much more you can do on GC Watt.
Yeah, and so from my understanding, and I may be very wrong because I haven't looked into this segment for too much, this seems to be something that only larger companies that could manage to afford, like engineering firms, to do energy audits, to actually understand how they are actually utilizing energy, what their cost, and then do a retrofit to bring the cost down. My experience just from the residential side, and maybe this could be good consumer feedback for you as well. When we had the initial price shock for diesel, I was living in Lagos in a serviced apartment, and our tariff went up to 120 naira per kilowatt hour, which is ridiculous. Which at that point it was twice what the grid tariff was, but because it was service, that was what we're paying. And at a certain point, the people who were supposed to be maintaining our power supply pretty much just like pulled out, and I didn't know it was possible for them to do, but they did, because they were just making so much of a loss even after they raised tariff by so much. And I got very creative to bring down my power consumption. You may not know this, but there's a setting in your fridge where you can actually reduce how cold your fridge gets. Like, I went into that much detail just to bring down, because it just got so expensive at a certain point. I was like, I can't believe I'm spending this much on power. So, and I'm sure many Nigerians, especially with what's happening with the price of petrol, what's happening with the price of diesel, they've become very conscious of how much they spend per month on power, because it's, for the first time for many people, it's becoming a very substantial part of their budgets. It most likely has increased at least 100% for the average consumer. It's something that I think is very needed, but I'm curious how this solution is going to integrate with the discos that operate across Nigeria. I know that the discos, although they provide a very valuable service, their customer experience has been very poor, and that's just my own feedback as well for any people working discos listening to this podcast. You have to use a third-party app to buy your units. You have no idea how to tell if your unit expires until you go check your meter. Once your meter is out, then you have to do the whole process again. It's just not a very good experience. So I'm curious if there is any kind of dialogue with the disco stakeholders, or how are you integrating this to work with the service that they're supplying, and where does it come across in the third-party apps that already exist to just buy units at the current moment?
So in terms of where does it come across, I think I'll start from there.
Yeah.
We're not just giving you the platform for you to buy your power. Mm-hmm. We also want people to manage it. That's the first, I would say, differential. And in my head, I was like, oh no, he didn't just go there. With respect to the discos. And I mean,
I don't put you on the spot, obviously. But while we're being honest.
So we're engaging a couple of the discos to sort of ensure that there's integration. And we believe at GridCrux that really this is the future. There's a bit of hardware that comes with this, but we believe that in the future there should be more open platforms that encourage integration. And I'm hoping, and I'm also certain that with time, eventually we'll get there. I think we also need to cut, not to encourage underperformance or mediocrity, but I think that we also need to cut the discourse some slack, because policy plays a major role, yeah? And we have to try to view things from both sides. I'm not trying to hold brief for the discourse, but a lot of projects that we're able to do and execute successfully is because we're able to charge cost-reflective tariffs. If we'll deviate a little bit from this energy space and talk about something that many of us understand and can link to properly, if you look at the cost of a loaf of bread today, it's probably, 1,000, 100,000, 200 naira. If you rewind back to about 10 years, maybe it was like, somewhere 200, 300 naira. That's easy, like a 4 to 6 times increase, on something that I don't want to say trivial, but such an everyday commodity. If you go back to what was the price of electricity, from the discos 10 years ago, in many cases you don't even have a 3x. So the real question is, how are these guys able to make investments? How are they able to break even? How are they able to stay sustainable? And it's difficult. It's difficult because we have tried to work with so many of them, but there's just this cap, And sometimes you want to sell something, but you know what the true cost of this solution is, and these guys simply have a cap on how much they can charge. And I think it's an issue that I hope maybe with a lot of the policy advancement that we're getting, would get some fixing. And that would actually open up so much when it comes to deployment of renewable energy solutions, when it comes to energy management solutions. We believe that, interfacing, integrating to folks like GCWatt would go a very long way in helping to also drive up revenues. And that's the future. It will happen eventually. The question is when. But are we working on it? Yes. Do we have challenges? Hell yeah, we do have challenges in making that happen. But the future that we see is one where these sorts of solutions are fully integrated to platforms that are owned and managed by our discos, and maybe in some cases even managed by people like GridCrux.
Yeah, okay. That is very good to hear. And as you rightfully pointed out, it's a very policy heavy space. I think like anything we do with energy is like it's very policy heavy. Are there been other stakeholders that you've worked with, whether it's with the GC World product or with the other business segments that have been notable? And what's your take on like the stakeholder atmosphere, the stakeholder environment in the energy space relating to GridCrux right now?
Firstly, it's the energy space is a very collaborative space. The problem we have is significantly sized problem, and I don't think that we have even enough players privately to do it. I still think that there needs to probably, and this is my own proposition, be some sort of restructuring in that whole distribution, transmission, generation, infrastructure setup, and how power is bought, how power is sold, how power is distributed, and how it gets to the customers and how it's metered. Because with the current setup that we have, it may be difficult to achieve rapid scale in the near future. I'm talking of purely disco business now. But of course, with integration to private players like GridCrux and many other guys doing amazing stuff, I think that's possible. But there needs to be a review of that whole structure and maybe have or mandate discos to own more, of the assets, and then have different individuals or different companies manage multiple segments. There also needs to be competition. The setup where you have one guy fully responsible for a geographic region doesn't encourage competition. So I think that the role that the discos are playing today needs to go one level deeper, where they own that distributed infrastructure, and then you have that extra layer of folks like GridCrux who play in front of the customer. And if for any reason customers are unhappy with a GridCrux or whoever else it may be, they can switch who it is that is providing their metering. If you think that the experience that you are getting in terms of service, in terms of responding to complaints, in terms of payment platforms, if you think that is not satisfactory, you should be able to switch. And today we are not set up with that kind of structure. And I think it's something that really needs to be looked into to bring a lot of acceleration and scale to that. Having said that, we are taking strides in the right direction. Years ago, there wasn't a vibrant association for renewable energy, but today we have Rian, and shout out to Rian, doing a lot of work in terms of bridging the gap, particularly between other key stakeholders, investors, and guys playing in the space. We also have REA that is doing a tremendous amount of work, especially in the off-grid sector, managing a lot of the grants and even sourcing them from a lot of the DFIs. We have people like NERC, NEMSA, who have also been very collaborative and supportive when it comes to obtaining permits or obtaining regulatory approvals for projects. So Rome wasn't built in a day. Are there challenges when it comes to policy? Yes, I think there still are, and there will always be, because it's a continuous improvement process. But even the recent Electricity Act that was signed into law is another step in the right direction. Still, maybe some gaps here and there. But again, perfection is not a day's job. It's the consciousness of the fact that we have work to do and we can continue to improve on it daily till we chisel away and get to a state that maybe is not 100% perfect, but we have a lot of satisfied customers that we have added value to in the space.
Yeah, and I think you laid that out very well, very diplomatic as well. I can learn a few things from that response. 2 questions before we end off. So you said that GC Watt is currently in what I can term a beta stage, but like what kind of pricing structure are you looking to once you're actually looking to roll this out, so we can start looking towards it? And more importantly, how can I get into this free testing stage?
So I would say you have a thing with putting questions that sort of put your guest on the spot. But maybe, so I don't want to commit to pricing figures yet.
Yeah.
But it's definitely going to be single digit thousands. So way less than 10,000 naira. And if I'll be honest, we're hovering for different packages between that 900 naira and 3,700 naira space. Yeah. But this is B2C. It's also a solution that could be used by private utilities, by SMEs. And for businesses, we have a totally different package that's dependent on the usage. So in terms of price, that's the price point. The goal is to make it as affordable as possible. I keep saying, if there's anything I'm sure everybody will leave this interview with or this podcast with, is adding value, making impact. And that's the number one goal. If we're not able to do that with GCWAT, don't pay me. Yeah. And that's the ideology. We want to make cash, yes, but the first thing is to add value to your energy management experience. In terms of how you can download, so far we have been sharing the links because it's the beta version or the beta version. You can simply just go to Play Store, search for GCWAT and download it. We just recently got uploaded to iOS and we're still trying to fine tune that. So on iOS, you probably need to search for GridCrux. On the Play Store, you probably need to search for GCWAT. But every information that you need is on www.gcwat, and that's what with 2t's.com.
Yeah, and I'll make sure to put all that information in the show notes as well. And now for the last question, for the listeners of the episode, before we started, I asked Jola if he had gone through the outline. He said he just had a glance through. So this question might put you on the spot as well, because this was all the way at the bottom. But with everything you've spoken about today and with the work and the amazing team, it sounds like you've put together GridCrux. How would you define failure, given that you've already told us what your mission statement is, but how would you define failure going forward for the company?
Failure for GridCrux?
Yeah.
We failed already. And I kid you not, we failed at several, I'll say maybe products or solutions that we've tried to launch. When we started, there were probably some other segments that we thought we want to focus on, and then we realized that we can't do everything at once. There is no value match between us and some of those. So I think we failed but failure is, and I don't want to wax philosophical, I think failure is essential, for you to really be able to learn. Just make sure that it's not a failure that keeps you down for too long. And anyone that tells you they've not failed is joking. GridCrux is a product of several failures, particularly of Mojola Ola. This is probably my third or fourth venture. I've done crazy amount of stuff. Moving back from England, even before going into paid employment, I tried so many different things, and a lot of the skill sets as a person that were brought to bear in some of the companies I work for were pure products of I'll call them learning processes from many of those failures. And at some point I thought, do I pack my bags and go back to this place I'm coming from, or do I, as they say, keep hope alive? So it's how you manage it. And I'm expecting still that GridCrux will probably fail at a couple of other things, but the failure should be a learning process. It should draw us closer and closer to actualizing that final vision that we have. And so long as we are able to add value, so long as we're able to stay impacting, I think any failure that we have will be temporary, will be short-lived.
Yeah, that was very well said. Jola, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Olu. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the episode. If you have made it this far, you might as well follow us so you do not miss future episodes. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode. And if you did find value in it, please share with a friend and a colleague. We have some big improvements coming up to the podcast in the next few months. I'm really excited to be working on it and to share them with you all very soon. And I hope you all stick along with the journey until then. Hope you all have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.